Welcome to Machine Minds, where technology and humanity meet. I'm your host, Greg Terrusian, founder of Samson Rose, a recruiting and search business focused on the robotics and AI industries. The Machine Minds show is where we dive deep into the intricate world of robotics and artificial intelligence. As a staffing industry leader with a passion for the frontiers of technology, I'm pleased to be bringing you intimate conversations with the founders, investors, and trailblazers who are at the heart of the AI and robotics revolution. In each episode, we dig into their journeys, the applications of the products they're working on, and the breakthroughs that are shaping our future. Join us as we explore how these machine minds are transforming the way we live, work, and understand our world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just curious about this amazing field, you'll learn something new with each episode. Let's delve into the extraordinary. Let's delve into machine minds. Hello and welcome to Machine Minds. I'm your host, Greg Terrusian, founder of Samson Rose, your robotics talent search partner. And on today's episode, I'm joined by Mohammad Musa, founder and CEO of Deepen AI. Thanks for being on the show today, Mohammad.
Thank you, Greg. Great to be here.
Thank you. Let's jump into it. So I usually start with my guest's background. And so I'd love for you to share your journey leading up to founding Deepen AI and what experiences shaped your path in the tech industry.
Yeah, my journey started many years ago, too many that I'm willing to admit, but spent the first 10 years of my career at various startups. Right after college, I worked for Xilinx for a little bit, and then Xilinx's chip company got acquired by AMD later on. But it was a public company at the time, so it was very mature, very nice place to start working. Then spent 10 years in different startups across semiconductor games industry. And in game industry, I worked for a company called Havoc that did physics engine for video games. So worked with a lot of the best game development studios around the world. That was a really fun job for somebody in their 20s to work on games.
Yeah.
And then went to a startup called Emergent Game Technologies that did a game engine, and also continued working with different game teams. So that's until like end of 2009, 2010. And after 10 years of startups, I said I need some stability in my life. So went to Google, where I was leading the product strategy team for what's called today Google Workspace, which is Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Sheets, Docs, and Slides, but for the enterprise version, not the consumer version. So that was a lot of fun, and we launched Google Drive to the world back in 2012, and worked on some projects that ended up dying, like Google Wave and Google Plus, and then some related other products that never saw the light of day. Like we worked on them so much, but actually never released. So it was a lot of learning at Google.
Plus. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was, its own journey. Let's just keep it there. a lot of trauma on that one. So after 6 years of Google, the startup bug started etching again. So I teamed up with two Google engineers to start Deepen, and we looked at specifically AI was kind of what we wanted to bring to market. And through iteration and a lot of conversations, we ended up in the robotics, autonomous vehicle space where we landed. And we experimented a little bit with augmented reality back in 2017 when we first started, but that wasn't really ready or mature back then, and I would say it's probably not even ready and mature right now. So I'm happy we didn't kind of dive too deep into AR at that early stage.
Yeah, seems like you've gone down the right path. So teamed up with some ex-colleagues, looked at this space. Was there a specific problem or gap in the industry that you aimed to address initially, or what were you actually going after when you started the company, or moved past that AR potential product fit?
Yeah, we kept it very kind of customer driven. We talked to a lot of different teams in the space, and there was a lot of interest back in 2017 in autonomous vehicles and robotics in general. I think robotics more so recently than back in 2017. But AV or autonomous was a big deal GM just acquired Cruise for a really nice number, and at the time, and Waymo, which is the Google Chauffeur project, became its own company and started to increase their rollout. Obviously, they just recently also started to significantly scale up their fleet. So that also took a lot of time. So it's not like we got the timing perfectly. Uh, but from a wave perspective, the momentum around that industry was happening, which we didn't see in the AR world. Only Facebook was kind of doubling down on the augmented reality aspect, and all of the others were not. Magic Leap to a certain extent, but we all know how that didn't
Yeah,
pan out
panned out.
so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even Microsoft HoloLens, I'm not sure if like that's
Wow.
still doing well or not. There's a lot of interest at the time, but AV autonomy in general, it's such a fundamental use case around mobility, and driving, especially in traffic, sucks,
Right.
and accidents suck, right? We want to save people's lives, not lose lives on the road. So there is a fundamental need that I think was the right call from a mission of the company perspective. Like, let's see how we can apply AI in a way that saves lives and increases productivity, opens up new doors to to do like new things, right? If you are driving 2-3 hours a day, imagine what you can do in these 2 or 3 hours if you don't have to focus on the road. It like economically, it opens up a huge amount of human time that was allocated for something that maybe was not desirable or productive. Very few people like driving in traffic. So uh like if you want to go on a race, that's
Yeah.
a fun drive, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, I have that conversation a lot because people talk about, since COVID and everyone got pushed to remote work and stuff, people are like, wow, I got so much time back. I don't have to commute and all of that. And then I think for some people that love stayed, but then other people like myself, like I miss a commute. I do miss a commute just for your brain switching gears or to connect with people on the phone or listen to a podcast or some music or ebook, whatever it is to have that time. But it was also not productive. And I'm obviously, accent might give it away, but I'm from the UK originally and we were always on the trains and stuff. And you could read, you could listen to things, you could work if you were doing like, sometimes I'd have to go outside of London. And those trains are designed with tables and connectivity and stuff like that. But you think about if you were forced to or opted into that commute that was autonomous and you had that time to do whatever you wanted to do, so much is open, so much productivity, but nothing can change the benefits of being in person for so many industries, so many roles, so many use cases. Um, especially in the hardware world, right? You want people to be in person. So I think if you're able to make that time productive and useful, it's a win-win all round, really. And then the safety element and
100%.
everything like that.
Yeah, and safer. It also, there's another angle that if you can bring the cost per mile down, you open up mobility options
Right.
to a significantly bigger number of the population that maybe have not been able to afford mobility at this rate. Like,
Right.
it's not convenient, or then it's not accessible. Some rural areas where maybe
Mhm.
you don't have public transportation and so on. So you enable a lot of different sections of society that have not been like they haven't been getting an equitable version of
Right.
the mobility that is offered to everybody else.
So let's talk about Deepen AI in more detail, because you guys offer a suite of tools for data annotation and sense calibration, etc. And I know we spoke offline before we started about like new products that you're looking at as well. Can you elaborate on these products and just the company as a whole, your technology, and what you guys are doing right now?
Yeah, definitely. And related to your last question, when we asked people working in autonomy back in 2017, one of the biggest pain points was the quality of the data that they have to put into the machine learning models for them to become more precise and more accurate. And that is still a problem today. The machine learning models require a ton of data to be trained, and that training data requires a level of ground truthing. So ground truthing is essentially telling the machine what it's looking at. Like, here's a person, here's a car, here's a lane, traffic sign, and different modalities, different sensors, different car sizes, different environments, and different countries, and so on. So all of these different locations, that's called an operational design domain, ODD. So for each ODD, you need a ton of data to let the model generalize and understand how to recognize people, how to track them over time. And then you have different models that will try to predict the trajectory of motion of these dynamic agents, whether they're cars, bicyclists, cyclists, motorists, et cetera, et cetera. So annotation is the process of giving meaning to that raw data so it becomes useful to train an AI model. It's like teaching a baby how to speak. You keep
Right.
telling the baby, here's a car, this is a car. And over time, they learn how to say it, they learn how to recognize it, and they play with it down the line. So exactly the same approach with AI. We keep teaching the model, here's a car, until it knows how to recognize it, how to project its velocity or trajectory of motion. And then finally, it can actually drive a car, not just recognize it. So
Interesting.
that ground truth data, you need it for both training the models as well as validating. So once you're
Mhm.
done with your development, you want to make sure that your model is working correctly, and you use ground truth data to do that validation. So the annotation suite or the annotation area, we offer those software, the tools, and we also provide a service around it. So if a customer has, say, 100,000 miles of data that they need to annotate, we can send that to our workers in India to do the data labeling and provide it back in a way that is streamlined. So they don't have to go and hire the people, they don't have to train them, they don't have to work on the software, manage, hire, fire, train, all of this
All the fun
problems
stuff.
around, yes, all of these issues around managing workforce and the software around it. We kind of take care of all of that, and we provide that as a end-to-end service to the customer.
Awesome. Awesome.
So that's
And
the annotation piece.
yeah, but that, I mean, that's just one part of it, right? Because there's several things that you guys do.
Yeah, so if you think of everything that I said about ground truthing, if the data is not good, then the whole process is actually useless because you
Right.
get garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
And as we worked with customers over the years, we've noticed that many of them had quality problems with their data. Sensor calibration is one of those aspects. So you have multiple cameras, multiple LiDAR sensors, radars, etc. And those sensors, they need to be calibrated pretty much on regular basis because you have accidents, you have things on the road that may happen, causes the sensor to change location, or you just do a repair and you need to recalibrate the sensor. So that is a common pain point and is a recurring pain point. And we figured that we can help our customers with that. So we've developed some technology to make that faster, better, safer. Uh, and the faster piece is the most important one. So one of our customers in Michigan, May Mobility, we helped them bring the calibration time down from 9 hours per vehicle to less than an hour. And
Wow.
that was super important. And imagine if you had 1,000 vehicles that
Right.
you need to do 9,000 hours of calibration per day. It just doesn't work, right?
Right.
So we that was a pretty kind of important accomplishment, and we continue to work with these guys and others on making calibration accessible and like safer, faster, better, and in multiple use cases. So not just shuttles like what my mobility is doing, passenger vehicles, trucks, also off-highway industrial environments, whether it's like manufacturing, oil and gas, agriculture, construction, and so on.
Yeah, we spoke about this when we first met, and it blew me away that time saving and then how easy it was. Because can you talk a bit about that, like what the calibration actually looks like? Say you're taking a robot out the box or whatever, or you get a vehicle in the manufacturing line. What does it look like for them to actually do that calibration?
Yeah, so today They have to do the calibration in a very fixed way. The vehicle has to be parked in a certain location. You have to have targets, predefined hardware targets that are positioned at a kind of a distance from the car or from the sensor. And that measurement has to be extremely precise. The ground has to be perfectly flat. You have to have very good lighting condition in the room. And for these targets, like they have to be placed super precisely in order for the calibration process to occur seamlessly, which you
Mm.
can do very easily in a factory setting, right? You have like prefabricated, well-determined environment that you can control what's happening. But once you get into the field, like good luck getting good lighting, flat ground, and getting those hardware targets placed in front of the vehicle. Imagine like at a dealership or a repair shop, they don't have
Mm.
3 meters, 9 feet of
Just
space
open
to
space
just open
and
space to,
ideal
you know,
conditions.
yeah, to put the target away. So that's where our calibration comes to the mix. So what we enable is just looking at the sensor data using AI, we will compute the calibration automatically. And you don't have to have this perfect environment. You don't have to have these targets. And it just opens the door for you to do a lot more things in a lot predictable and a much more flexible way. Now,
Yeah.
with some customers, because it's safety critical, they do need the targets to get that peace of mind. Like, yes, we've done it exactly at the precision and accuracy level that we want. So we do support that, and we enable them to do it with or without targets, or even multiple targets, and
Mm.
in different settings, so that whatever they need in their environment, we just make it more streamlined. And we'll be able to share more, maybe next year, kind of a lot more details about that. But it's been a good journey working on calibration the past few years.
I bet. And in such a competitive market, it's easy to see how you guys stand out, or the ease of use or time saving and things like that. I think those are such important factors when you're looking at bringing in a solution, especially to a space that's already got a quote unquote solution, even though it takes a long time. They're doing it themselves. But if you can save big chunks of time, which at the end of the day, when you're manufacturing, is money, right? More man
Yeah.
hours, more time, bottleneck of getting your product out there. So that's huge. Let's shift gears and talk more about like your funding journey, because another topic that we talked about that I was pretty impressed with. You guys have been around since 2017. How have you been funded since inception? And also, let's talk about like what the team looks like now as well in terms of size.
Yeah, we started with some funding from the founders themselves, so like our own money, family and friends. And slowly, as the company grew and we had a product, and we went out and raised angel funding from executives in the Valley and some ex-Google friends and so on. But for the most part, we tried to be revenue funded as much as possible. So
Amazing.
even in the early days of the company, we took on some projects to just keep the cash coming. And because in my 10 years of startups, remember when we talked about my
Mhm.
background, uh, all of these startups ended up, even though we had great technology and many times like a good business, a profitable, growing business, we ended up shutting down the business and selling it, or the VC decided to sell it because it wasn't growing fast enough or wasn't like at the level that they desired. And I just thought that like that's a missed opportunity. You had a good, well-functioning business, but it's not performing at the venture scale. And venture success is just very hard, right? It's not, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do not appreciate how the VC dynamics work. So if you cannot hit that like 100x type return, maybe it's not always 100x, like 10x, 20x,
Right.
30x, but a minimum of 10x. Then you don't really fit the formula. And and for us, especially working on like groundbreaking technologies that is not yet deployed at scale. I mean, even Waymo today,
Right.
they've been working on it for 15 years. They're not everywhere. Uh,
Mhm.
they're still investing. in the product. They're still investing in the technology. It hasn't come out. So Google can fund that type of project, but VCs cannot fund that type of project, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And this is kind of, for us, was how do we actually, without having Google as a parent, how do we fund ourselves to keep kind of working toward this mission that we have? And through just giving customers what they want, trying to maximize kind of what we do around product versus service aspects of the business, we kept the company alive and we grew. We have multiple products now, and the service division is at a good size now. We have more than 1,000 people doing labeling in India, and we have the engineering team at 15 people now, mostly in Hyderabad, India. Me and my CTO are based here in the US, and kind of that mix. Our third co-founder is leading the India team, NL, and he was also with us at Google. So the dynamics, I guess, with funding and bootstrapping, and then also raising from angels and so on, it's been a journey. Like, we've learned so much in the past 8 years, but definitely, I would say, if I had to run it any other way, it depends when you ask me. But some years I was super frustrated, but now, like, looking back, in hindsight, like, this is the best way that it could have happened, because otherwise we would have been shut down. Like, as simple as that.
True. I mean, we met at an event that Samsung Rose sponsored, the Robotics Inflection one, and there was a lot of talk about investment there. And I don't know if you were there for that part of the discussions, but what VCs look for and how they push, especially the ones that were on the panels and stuff, but pushing founders for insights and answers into revenue, obviously product market fit and stuff like that, but like projections and quickly get to a cash flow positive place or something like that. And it was like, I obviously get the sentiment. And I think that VC has changed a lot in the last 10 years from the focus of like, hey, we're just going to invest crazy amounts of money to get market share, like when it was Uber and when they were investing in Bird and all these things, or even Snapchat in the early days. It's just like, just burn the cash, get the market share, and it will work out in the end. And then flip to people like, maybe not everything's going to be like you talk about 100x, and there's some that are a little bit more realistic, but they're risk averse because they don't want to keep investing in things that they don't think will turn a profit. And then it leaves this really weird gray area for moonshots and for innovation and for companies that, especially if you're in the hardware space or if you're in a new industry that hasn't got a clearly defined maybe product market fit or business plan or revenue model yet, but you know that the technology is going to be impactful. There's a much smaller percentage of investors that are going to be aligned with that and are going to back your vision. And who does that leave? How many opportunities does that leave for companies, for projects, for ideas like that? Do we just leave it up to the Googles or the Amazons or Facebooks to say, well, we'll be the end customer and we'll invest in it until it works out, or until we're like, hey, let's just cut that off because we have cash to burn? Or does it force those founders like yourself to say, all right, well, we're going to self-fund it and take on projects to like make it more revenue positive? I don't know. I don't have an answer, but it was kind of eye-opening, really.
Yeah, 100%. There is no silver bullet. I think for some people who want, like, to do it as fast as possible, get a very quick, like, yes, it's gonna work or it's not gonna work, VC model works perfect.
Yeah.
You do it for a year or two, you get some VC money, you try to make it a success, and you hit your milestone, then you're alive. If you don't, you walk away and you've learned a few good lessons. I think I come from a Middle Eastern background where the whole launch and iterate and pivots and fails,
Yeah.
like, we don't take failure so so
So
so
lightly.
openly,
Yeah. Yeah.
like how Silicon Valley takes it. Not that I'm against agile and pivoting, but definitely there is kind of a culture change. And even in the AI space now, you see a few companies that are raising billions and billions and billions of dollars, and then there are many other projects that are starving for air, and it's getting very, very hard for them to differentiate. uh, there is always some momentum around a certain new technology and how good and how great it can make our lives. uh, that balance is an art, not a
Yeah.
science, 100%. And that's why different VCs have different performance portfolio and so on.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It makes sense. It's really an interesting one, isn't it? And yeah, we'll see what happens because companies or VCs, shall I say, are looking for businesses, I think anyway, in a lot of the ways like you guys are now. Ready, proven, cash flow positive, self-funded, and then you hit that point where you're like, all right, we need institutional money just to scale at the rate that we want to. And then that's normally when they'll start lining up and taking serious conversations, because you can go the other way and just like look at banks and non-traditional funding and etc. But that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, yeah. Like I helped several friends raise money in the past, and I keep telling them, especially students, the best time to get VC money is when you absolutely do not need it. Like
Yeah.
that is the right time. If you don't need the money, then it's easy to get VC money. But otherwise, if
Hmm.
you really need it, it's hard
It's
to come
tough.
through
Yeah.
unless you have some great relationship, or you've done some pretty amazing things where people trust you and can just
Yeah.
give you the money and just hope for the best.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I have a client at the moment that they were not looking, they had hardly any marketing, anything like that. And then investors came to them. And next thing you know, they've almost raised like close to $100 million round just because they were not looking, they were head down on their product. They were getting so much incoming interest and just keeping in their lane, doing their thing. And for some reason the word got out and investors came to them. And to your point, they didn't need it, they weren't looking for it, they could have waited another 12 months, but it was a great time to raise for that reason when other people in that space aren't raising that kind of money. So it was huge.
Makes
um
sense.
yeah, let's talk about scaling the company. What have been some of the key milestones for you guys in terms of growth? You've mentioned a few key customers here, May Mobility, etc. What are the milestones or key achievements can you share with us?
Yeah, so there is kind of technical, operational, and just revenue, right? To technical achievements, our tool, we've invested a lot in making it happen, has a lot of automation, enterprise workflows. It has all of the security, audits, compliance, certifications. That took a long time, like ISO
Yeah,
27001 and TSAX. And let me turn on the lights again.
yeah, sure.
Here we go. uh, So yeah, compliance of the software, that was a pretty big deal, making it enterprise ready, scaling that up so you can support thousands of users at the same time, infrastructure, making sure that you don't spend too much on Google Cloud and Amazon Cloud and so on. That's kind of all technical achievements. And we track that, like how much automation we are enabling, how productive the workers are we tracking, any like potential fraud or people not using the software the right way? There has just been a ton of development that went into that. And kind of we look at the milestone that we've done a good job is that we have customers like Uber that are licensing our software to offer
Wow.
labeling service to others. So
Mm,
having, a Fortune 50 company be a customer, that was a kind of a very nice
big deal.
validation that we've built something that we've
Yeah,
built something useful. Uh, and also there is another Fortune 3 company that also licensed our software, but we probably cannot publicly talk about that kind of very
yeah,
openly. And then on the operational side, just being able to scale the number of in-house labelers to more than 1,000 people. And like even if you have 1% churn, you're starting to talk about tens of people, right? It's
yeah,
at that number on monthly basis, you need to be hiring, training, keeping that pipeline up and running, and multiple offices and so on. So we've learned how to manage that hiring good, high quality people, doing like background checks and training them, doing performance management, giving them a career ladder. That's operationally was very complex. And now we're increasing the team size also rapidly. So kind of managing this kind of number of people has been a lot of lessons learned. And then finally, on the revenue side, we have customers like BMW, Mercedes, Hyundai, Ford Otosan, some of the biggest logos in the world, Honda, Nissan, that are using our software or they're using our services. Just the sales process, to get these customers on board and convince them to stay and be a customer of this tiny little startup out of Silicon Valley, working with all of these big OEMs around the world has been very rewarding and challenging. With these big companies, also contracts are not easy to negotiate. It takes a long time to make them
Yeah,
happen. So once you win any of these big accounts, it's a big deal.
sure. Wow. It's a lot of achievement since 2017, a lot of milestones, great customers, names. And that amount of staff is no easy feat, especially offshore. I know you have one of your co-founders that you said are managing the teams in India. How do you get to that kind of number of employees? Are you constantly, you talked about your pipeline, but are you interviewing all the time? Do you have internal recruiters? Do you have recruiting partners? Are you doing like campus stuff, partnering with other companies? How do you get to that level?
Yeah, we chose, so they are not employees in the kind of most traditional sense. They are
Mhm.
contractors.
Okay,
And so they are labelers and they come in. We kind of, when we have projects for them, then we hire them and then they come on a project by project basis.
got it.
So we've kind of operationalized that whole process. It's a funnel. So
Okay.
you have, and you have to connect it kind of with the business because you cannot hire people when you don't have work for them.
Yeah,
And if you don't, and our projects are also not always predictable. Some customer may, we've had in the autonomous world, we've had many customers go out of business, a lot. And it's been a challenge, like you'll have a contract signed and it's a very big, 7-figure contract. And then I get a call from the customer saying, hey, sorry, we couldn't fundraise. We're going out of business. We cannot pay you. Uh,
yeah.
well,
What do you
like
do?
I don't even have anybody to go sue for that money,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's
Exactly.
so there's just been a lot of like navigating that uncertainty, the demand and the supply of the workforce. Been a lot of kind of good lessons learned, and you use software, you use some tooling in the process to make that better, faster, more efficient, and hiring good people who have good DNA for knowing how to pick the right hires and how to grow them if they are succeeding, having a ladder for them to grow and remain with the company if they're doing well.
Mm,
Uh, there was a lot of mistakes along the way that before we got into a working operation, and kudos to the team that we hired in India. And Anil, my co-founder, and Sandeep, who's our head of customer success. They've just worked very hard on this to make it run as smoothly as it is now.
yeah,
And there's a ton of IP just in how you get that process to be streamlined. Because even when you have to say, if you have 50 to 100 people that are either uh, that they want to leave on their own, or their performance is not so well, and you need to compensate that on your payroll, it's a significant amount of people. And
yeah, for sure.
we've learned that if you go external, it ends up costing triple the amount. So we had to figure out how to do it internally, because the numbers
Wow.
just if you're only hiring 10, 20,
Yeah,
no problem. But when you're hiring in the hundreds, you have to be like super efficient. You got to master doing that at scale at any time.
yeah. That's really good advice. It's really good advice because it's becoming more and more common, I think, in more companies that I speak to, that to focus on or what's the word that I'm looking for? Augment their spend, are looking at offshore teams and doing it successfully and effectively. But the advice here is like, at what stage do you bring everything in house, and how do you keep an eye on it and make it a well-oiled machine that it doesn't end up just being like a faucet of money going all day, every day, because then it's going to cost you more than it would if you had a smaller team onshore. 100%. Let's talk about the solutions that Deepen AI is contributing to the advancement of safety of autonomous vehicles, and then robotics, which we touched on slightly as well, because it is, you mentioned before, some of these use cases are critical. People can die if it's not done properly and things like that. What's your view on how other people have been doing it, and how you guys will solve the problem or have a better solution, and then have that go across the masses?
Yeah, we've been kind of early on. I had an idea that safety should not be a competitive advantage. So in a way, if one of us gets into a stupid accident, that hurts all of us.
Yeah.
So yes, you want to be better than your competitors, but also you don't want your competitors to be completely incompetent, because then
Dangerous.
regulation might actually block all of us. So there is some co-opetition elements here where we should collaborate as an industry. And luckily, in the automotive space, the OEMs, especially in Germany, they decided a long time ago that they should only compete on things that are that are not commodity. So like they compete on luxury, and they compete on speed and handling, and balance of the
Yeah.
car and so on, and size and things like that. But you don't want to compete on like who has uh, the best emergency braking system. When emergency braking first came out, maybe that was kind of a differentiated feature, but now emergency braking is required and mandated by regulation in both US and Europe. So for these use cases where it's mandated, it's almost a commodity, we should not compete. So how can we standardize and help each other to avoid, let's call it, stupid mistakes, or uh, basic experiences that everybody should know how to do. So my idea was to build a database and bring all of these scenarios that may cause an accident and share them among each other. So we partnered with the University of Warwick in the UK, and we launched a database called safetypool.ai, which has hundreds of thousands of scenarios that you can use to test if your system is good or bad. And it forms some sort of that baseline, like what is the minimum scenarios that I can test to make sure that my system is safe. And that's one aspect of what we have been doing around safety, but also on top of that, working with standard bodies, like there's a standard body in Germany called ASAM, ASAM, and they're setting standards for things like calibration, measurement, testing, and so on, and data formats. So we led the creation of a format called Open Label. So how do you label your data? How do you store that labels? There is some level of standard, like it's not competitive in any way how you format your labeling. So we said, here's the format, let's all use it. And luckily it's getting a lot of adoption in the industry now. So
Amazing.
that's on the standard side. And the third thing that we're also doing around this is, because I also kind of strongly believe that safety should be at the cornerstone of autonomy. We're very active members of the AutoWare Foundation. It's an open source autonomous stack. And I'm leading the safety assurance working group for AutoWare. So we're working together with many members within the AutoWare universe to basically look at how do we define safety? What are we measuring? How do we communicate that transparently? And the source code is there. It's an open source project. So we're creating kind of a blueprint and a template that others can see and use, and they don't have to pay us anything. We think safety should just be built in, and
Yeah.
ultimately, that will hopefully save people's lives as well as uh, come back and help us bring the industry forward.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, I think is you're practicing what you preach here. If you believe that that is the co-op way of doing it, and safety is so important, it's one thing to just say it and kind of chant it from the top and be like, safety is important, we should all work together, but then actually leading that charge and doing it and having the open source projects there. I mean, kudos to you for doing that, and the adoption in the industry. I think that speaks volumes to the quality and the importance here.
Thank
Let's
you.
look at the future outlook for you guys. Or just in general, from your opinion, what emerging trends in AI and autonomous systems excite you the most at the moment?
Well, there is a lot. One, Waymo has been scaling up, so that's proving that, hey, these autonomous systems are not a dream. They actually can work, and they are safe enough to be deployed. So that's causing the industry to realize, oh yeah, this is not just some fancy futuristic technology. It is here and it's happening. And if you're not looking at full autonomy just in the ADAS, the driver assistance world, advanced driver assistance systems, that's ADAS, there is a lot of potential in that industry, and it's been almost dominated by a couple of companies in the past. So there is a lot of room to grow in those ADAS AV markets, whether for automotive and the other use cases that we talked about in the robotics areas like construction, agriculture, and so on. So I'm very excited about that, and I think kind of all of the work that we've been doing for automotive specifically, we can scale out to the other robotics verticals that I mentioned. That's one aspect. The second aspect is around sensors. So sensors, LiDAR specifically, the LiDAR industry went down from like a couple of hundred companies to now a couple of tens, maybe less than 20 companies surviving in the LiDAR space.
Really? Wow.
And yeah, it's been a difficult journey. uh, because that's what we specialized in our early days is LiDAR sensor fusion. And as those companies, kind of the only few remaining, I'm hoping that those few are actually going to find out a way to bring the cost down and ship at scale. So once that happens, you also open this new kind of opportunity space of more safety, more use cases at a higher certainty to bring the economic value that was missing in the past. So for a lot of robots, like, sure, if I give you a couple of $1 billion, you can make me an awesome robot, but how many units are you going to sell economically and make a profit, right? So in the sensor space around things like LiDARs and new formats of radars and better cameras and so on, there is a lot of development happening there. And I think it will open more doors or more opportunities that we haven't thought about in robotics, especially outside of automotive, actually, not just in automotive.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. Before we get to wrap, because I know we're almost at time, you have a hard stop. If we're looking ahead, what aspirations do you have for Deepen AI in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Yeah, my biggest aspiration is hopefully we'll find a way to run our software on the vehicle or on the device, whatever that device is.
Okay.
Robot, car, bus, uh, like
Drone.
one of these agriculture vehicles or
Yeah.
drones or miners, oil rigs, and so on. So we're working hard on getting our software on the edge to run in the system and expanding. We've been doing a lot of picks and shovels. Here's annotation, here's calibration, here's some scenarios from our safety pool database.
Yeah.
So as a next stage, like what else can we do to help our customers bring their products faster to market and make them safer, more productive? Our mission is safer, more productive, faster. So the safety angle, I talked a lot about that. The productivity angle, and the speed is tightly coupled with the quality and the economics of the operation. And I think that's where that underlying like economic side, can you make these systems run efficiently and generate a margin at the end? That's an exciting challenge, and that's what we'll be focusing on the next 3 to 5 years.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you for being on the show today, Mohammed, and sharing your insights and about the company. I really appreciate it. And I got a lot from this episode. I know that our listeners will as well. Where can everyone listening hear more about you and Deepen AI and follow along?
Yeah, our website is deepen.ai. And if you want to email us, it's info@deepen.ai. I do monitor that mailing list at least every day. So we will get we'll find a way to connect. If there is anything we can do to help, would love to connect.
Perfect. Well, look, thank you again. Really appreciate you taking the time, and I will speak to you soon.
Great. Thank you for taking the time. Bye.